Good morning and welcome into another episode of Big Talk, college sports with a Midwest perspective, blue collar and blue blood. I'm Dalton Schettler alongside my partner, as always, Sam Sprunger. Sam, how we doing today?
It is a wonderful day. It always is whenever we get to talk about big things. Get it? But I was the past couple of days I've been looking. I go on a brother-in-law outing every year, and we go to a baseball game. The past couple of years we've been in Pittsburgh and seen them play the Phillies, and there's a hotel that we like that's literally half a block away from PNC. So like the walk the ride home is literally like 45 steps that way. So it's an awesome place. But this year, the Phillies have done pretty good in the past couple of years, so that game is now selling out almost completely. And we thought of broadening our horizons a little bit, and I'm looking for West Tennessee. That's the AA affiliate of the Cubs. Okay. So the West Tennessee Smokies. I'm a Cubs fan, obviously. But we go in July 20, 21st, 20, that kind of region, the 20th through the 24th or 5th.
Well, I'll be playing the new video game for college football, but go on.
Right, I get that. But the many minor league teams do their Christmas in July promos that year, or around that time. And the West Tennessee Smokies are wearing ugly Christmas sweater jerseys. Are you a fan of the promos that minor league baseball teams do with like the different types of jerseys and things like that? The Star Wars night, the Marvel night, Christmas in July. What's your favorite one too?
So my favorite one, I actually up here in Michigan had developed a pretty nice relationship with the Lansing Lugnuts for a while.
Yeah.
And they went on this series where they, for a few years, did backyard baseball.
Oh, like the computer game, the backyard baseball. Oh,
so they did a couple of those jerseys where they were like, they would put it out to like a fan poll, and they'd be like the Swamp Rabbits or whatever, like those old names that they used to be on the video game. And they had bobbleheads. They had a Pete Wheeler bobblehead, and they had a
Pablo Sanchez. Oh,
I got both of those bobbleheads here in this house right now. So that to me will always hold a special place.
Well, and I love the few memes. It's like name the all-time greatest athlete ever, and Pablo Sanchez is always because he was the best pitcher, he was the best hitter, he was the best. He was the Bo Jackson of the backyard baseball world.
He really was. I really hope our listeners remember that game, so that way we're not feeling on an island. But that game used to eat up so much of my childhood when I was 7 or 8 years old.
You hear Dalton talking about how much time the new college football game is going to take from him. That's what backyard baseball did.
That's right. It's true. I played it so.
The same league that the Lugnuts are in, the South Bend Cubs and the Fort Wayne Tin Caps are in. And a couple years back, I would talk to the head of marketing, and I can't remember her name right off the top of my head. But she was talking to me, and it was when they first started doing the Marvel nights. They signed, the league as a whole signed an agreement with Marvel, and Marvel designed all their uniforms for those nights.
Oh,
so the first year was they said they kind of hurried it the first year because they signed it so late, the deal so late. So they just basically gave each team one of 5 different choices. So you had some repeats in there, but the next year they Marvelized the logos. So the Cubs logo, the South Bend Cubs logo was Marvelized, and the Tin Caps was the Johnny, the Tin Cap. He was Marvelized to look like Thor and stuff. I love those, but I love the Christmas in July. Honestly, I really do. That and the Tin Caps had one year where they did social media night, and anybody that followed them on Twitter had their name in their jersey, so the handle was on the jersey. So everybody that followed, it was the complete design of the tin caps, but it was everybody that followed him's handle. It was pretty cool. I love
Great idea.
the creativity is what I like about those specialty nights. So that's why I
Yeah.
thought, you know what, I'm going to ask Dalton his favorite specialty night.
Well, we got a bunch of, I mean, it is that time, like as we roll into June here shortly. I mean, it is time for some of this. And by the way, it brings up a kind of a point of this week's show of Big Talk. Obviously, the cupboard for Big Ten news is a little bit more bare this week.
Yeah.
And so we're having some fun with this episode. We're going to talk about a couple of things with the Big Ten, but we're going to get everybody out of here to celebrate Memorial Day weekend as well and have a great time. Any Memorial Day weekend plans, Sam?
I'm welcoming my wife back after almost 2.5 week absence. She went on a trip for work. She works at a university, and they have like, they're not mission trips, but they're trips that they've got to take, or the students have to take in order to graduate. And she's gone on this trip for 3 years, and so I'm welcoming her back. My mom's coming over, and we're taking her. She's got the birthday right around Mother's Day, so
okay,
she gets the Mother's Day birthday gift all wrapped into one on Memorial Day weekend.
That's a perfect way to handle it.
Why not? So no, not any huge like outdoorsy plans, but yes, I have a ton of plans. It's the weekend, of course I do.
Yeah, I'll be heading to a lake and golfing, so it feels very appropriate and on the nose of the Memorial Day weekend theme. So,
right.
But okay, let's get into a couple of these things. One, for the Big Ten Conference, the fiscal reports came out, and the Big Ten Conference did get the most revenue yet again out of all the different conferences. They come in number one at $880 million. And I mean, Sam kind of jokes around a little bit, but they've been jockeying with the SEC quite a bit. And the SEC a few years back had the number one spot. Big Ten has reclaimed it for the last couple of years now. But the Big Ten at $880 million of revenue, that paid out to about $60 million per school in the Big Ten Conference. And again, I mean, we've talked about it for a while, just how big the money's gotten in college sports, specifically with the Big Ten. That goes to give you quite a literal data point to use.
And it grows after this year.
Yep.
Because it's 4 new teams. That awesome expansion clause that Mr. Warren put in there in the agreement is it expands because 4 new teams join. So we're probably looking at upwards of $1 billion next year, wouldn't you think? Probably then.
It's got to be around there.
Or at least very, very close.
Yeah.
Which, let's think about that. This is one conference that could potentially be bringing in a big B billion. And there are leagues that don't even come close to that, like professional leagues that don't come close to that. How insane what world are we living in right now? You know?
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's what, like, it should have been foreseen by leadership a long time ago. When you start to talk about money being this big, like, of course it's going to come with so many other issues. And, it was only a matter of time that we'd get to this point if the game and the sport has gotten this big, and it most certainly has. And as you talked about, hanging around maybe $1 billion, and a big part of it too, Sam, is with the new TV contract and everybody wanting to obviously spending a lot of money with the Big Ten, but wanting to maximize what they have. Fox has decided they're going to air 9 Friday night games of Big Ten football this upcoming season. Kind of want to get your take on it. But again, everybody's trying to maximize their windows, maximize their ratings, maximize everything, right? Like, everybody's trying to be pretty strategic here. So here's the Friday night schedule if you missed it. September 20th, Illinois goes to Nebraska. September 27th, Washington at Rutgers. October 4th, Michigan State at Oregon. October 11th, Northwestern at Maryland. October 18th, Oregon at Purdue. October 25th, Rutgers at USC. That game, by the way, kicks off at 11 p.m. Eastern. I think
on Friday night?
Yeah, I think it follows game 1 of the World Series. So they're starting it at 11 o'clock. Rutgers at USC on October 25th. November 8th, Iowa at UCLA. November 15th, UCLA at Washington. November 22nd, Purdue at Michigan State. So those are the 9 games that Fox is going to put on Friday nights. Overall feelings on this?
Well, it sounds to me, I hadn't looked at the whole schedule. I'd only seen the Purdue one, so I knew Oregon coming to West Lafayette and then Purdue going to East Lansing. But I think the way it's sounding to me is Fox is trying their best to kind of highlight those 4 new teams coming into the Big Ten and showcasing them on a Friday night when they can, as a standalone, like, hey, look at what the Big Ten has now, and I don't hate it, but that USC Rutgers game,
So I wanted to pull up kickoff times. In the original source I was reading from didn't have it, which the original source I was reading from was The Athletic, if you're interested in more information. Just circulating on social media, I see the kickoff times. Most of them are either 8 or 9 o'clock that are going to be starting. But that Rutgers USC game, like we talked about, 11 p.m., that one's the outlier.
I'm sure that's going to have a huge market rating in the East.
Well, and even for them, I mean, the East, you're absolutely right, but even the West Coast, that's an 8 o'clock start.
8 o'clock start still.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I know they're trying to accommodate. They're trying to accommodate the West as well in those games because they're 3 hours behind the East. This is the problem that we run into with the conference that runs coast to coast. The ACC is going to have the same thing because they've got Stanford and Cal coming in. They're going to have, whenever Duke is out there playing, can you imagine the nightmare that's going to be? Is Duke and Cal play on a Tuesday evening and they're tipping off at 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
There are going to be a lot of unhappy Duke fans the next day on Wednesday,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And that's what's kind of crazy about this is, like, this game's going to finish up at like 2-3 a.m.
Yeah.
And Rutgers players won't really have time to have adjusted their body clocks to anything. Like, it's going to feel like 2 or 3 a.m. for them. I mean, besides being at a competitive disadvantage when sharing the field with USC, like,
is that game at USC? Is that game at USC?
I believe so.
I thought it was at Rutgers.
No. Rutgers at USC.
Oh, okay. My fault. That was even crazy. That's why it registered even crazier that they're kicking off in the East at 11. Okay, that makes me feel at least this much better. But yeah, you're right. They're gonna get there, and they're gonna think, oh my God, we're kicking off at 11 p.m.
And it's a Friday too, so you're moving up a day ahead in your travel schedule. Like, it's pretty wild how all that's going to go. But I'm kind of curious. Excuse me. Just Friday night games in general. Look, I know we're at a point now, especially where, we just talked about the money that's involved with the Big Ten and college football and how big everything is. But it does sadden me a little bit, and it's saddened me when the Big Ten's been kind of working towards this the last couple of years, working to Friday nights, just because we've always kind of had this calendar where high school football's on Friday nights, especially college football Saturdays, yes, and the NFL Sundays, and a Monday night NFL game. Like, that's always kind of been the calendar, and it's branched out since. And again, I get it. Not damning anyone. I do wish that high school kids could maybe watch more of those games, because many that play are interested in it, or the families, they don't want to necessarily miss games to go to the high school games. But that's choices they kind of have to make. I do wish it would be a little bit more categorized that way, I suppose.
And this is a serious question, how did the two most important teams in this conference avoid Friday night games?
It's a fair question.
How did they? USC is a pretty important team, but they have to play on Friday night. Washington, Oregon, UCLA. We heard all 4 of those teams. We heard Michigan State. We heard, all these other, Illinois, all these teams. Well, I guess we didn't hear Wisconsin, but still the two most
Indiana. So
right, but
those are your two most important.
Yes, absolutely. But how did the two most important teams avoid being the subject of a Friday night game.
It's fair. I don't have an answer, but
I know
fair.
you don't. That's
Fair.
it's just it's frustrating that we're talking about things like, well, it matters. It does matter when you're not used to playing on a Friday night and you play on a Friday night. It throws a wrench into your schedule. So, and we're just talking about Rutgers has got to travel across the country and play a game a day earlier and start at 11 o'clock at night, according to their biological clock in their head.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and if they're in that game, they'll be playing in the final moments at 3 a.m. It is pretty wild.
So it's frustrating that certain teams can influence that. Well, we don't want to play on Friday night. Oh, okay, we won't do that. Put everybody into it. Pull the stinking names out of a hat and say you're playing. We're paying billions of dollars or parts of billions of dollars. You're playing when we tell you you're playing.
Also do want to shift just for a moment, and we'll calm Sam down. But shifting for a moment, Big Ten softball has officially been eliminated in the NCAA tournament. They had 4 teams in. Of course, as you know, a lot of the NCAA softball was kind of owned by the SEC and Big 12 and some of those areas. And the Big Ten was not able to advance. Meanwhile, for the Big Ten baseball tournament, that'll be wrapping up this weekend. So if you're around a television, not sure what else to do, Memorial Day weekend, if you're not watching the Indy 500, you can watch the Big Ten baseball tournament. So there's that.
I ain't got nothing better to do. I'm watching the race.
Okay, look at that.
Purdue got eliminated, so I'm not watching any Big Ten baseball. I'm sour.
Protesting it. Okay.
No,
so
I'm watching the race. I try to watch I'm not a huge race fan. Car racing, be it NASCAR, any sort of racing really. But that goes on the nostalgia avenue. Is we almost every year growing up until I was in my mid-teens, we'd go to my grandparents every Memorial Day Sunday. We'd cook out. We'd have a big old to-do. My grandpa would take the news, and this is how old I am. My grandpa would take the newspaper, the sports section. They'd have the grid, the 33 racers, and little profiles. He'd cut them out, fold them in half, put them in a hat, and if you wanted to pull a racer out, you'd pay a quarter, and then everybody all 33 would be gone. First place would get this much, second place this much, third place this much. I never won anything, but the best chance I had was Mario Andretti in the mid 80s, and he wrecked out with like 10 laps to go or something. So,
you know what? That's actually a really great idea. If anybody's got a bigger party size, like that's a great idea of something to do.
Well, it makes it entertaining at a very affordable price. You got people go, you got like the Super Bowl. Hey, it's $10 a square for the score. No, that's too much. That give me a quarter, and then there's some rooting interest, but yet it's not breaking your bank when you don't win.
Yeah, no, I'm with it. That's actually a really great idea.
Just find a newspaper. That's your next challenge.
You're right. No kidding. So before we close out the show, I do think, Sam, we should take just a moment and just thank everybody. Again, we are celebrating Memorial Day weekend coming up here this weekend. I do, of course, want to thank all the men and women who served our country, and, of course, the ones who, with Memorial Day in mind, lost their lives protecting the freedoms that we enjoy. So a hearty thank you from Big Talk here. It really means a lot to us. We don't take it for granted.
Yeah, and that's one thing I'm glad you mentioned. Memorial Day is one for the ones who lost and gave their lives ultimately to help us be able to enjoy the freedoms that we do enjoy. Veterans Day, that's everybody's day. Anybody that served, that's their day. Whereas Memorial Day is the remembrance of those who gave their lives and selflessly. That's the thing is there are many people that couldn't do it or just honestly didn't want to. Luckily, we had those people that did want to and were willing to sacrifice it all. So yes, thank you to those who did that, and families who have suffered the loss. Know that we appreciate the the sacrifice that you, your family, and your loved one gave us.
So out of this whole weekend, just take a moment when you're flipping a burger or drowning a refreshment just to take that in and remember that. It's
absolutely
a pretty important thing. Well, Sam, if you want to let everybody know where they can find us on our way out the door, I'm going to take the headphones off for a moment and grab a couple special guests to say goodbye. So
all right.
I'll be right back.
So I still haven't updated the TikToks on here, but the TikToks, the Instagrams, and the platform formerly known as Twitter, we are at B1G_talk. That's B1G, not BIG. I'll hold up the one since Dalton's not here. B1G_talk. Go to Facebook, Big Talk B1G Talk. Not all Big Talk. The people at all Big Talk, they're great people, but that's not us. We are Big Talk. We are streamed every week on the ASAP network every Friday at 9 a.m. And later that day, the podcast version is released through Lounge Media Group. And if you want to see the stream, which you absolutely need to now, go to Spotify as Pablo Sanchez. Anyways, go ahead, Dalton.
Look at these two. Yeah, I ran over. I told you I had the bobbleheads from the Lugnuts closing the loop from the top of the show. Got Pablo Sanchez and Pete Wheeler. These are my two favorites, too.
Oh, and you know what? They are I don't remember Pete as much. I remember him, but Pablo, you can never forget that smile and that backward hat, and he was the GOAT of backyard baseball.
He absolutely was. So on behalf of Big Talk, our friends over at Backyard Sports and all wacky minor league promotions, we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in for this week's show. Yeah, Sam's got his own bobblehead going. We'd like to wish everybody a very happy Memorial Day weekend. And for my partner, Sam Sprunger, Pete Wheeler, Pablo Sanchez, so long. Take care, everybody.
See ya.